Welcome back to Anatomy and Physiology on Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. In this video, we're going to discuss the various types of joints in the body, or arthroses, and we're going to classify them based on structure and function. So first of all, let's talk about what joints are. A joint is literally just a connection between two things. That's all it is, and really in the English language, that's its definition. Now in the human body, we tend to think of it as a connection between two bones. For example, if we're looking at the elbow joint, look at your elbow right now, it's a physical connection between the humerus, which is your proximal arm bone, and the ulna. Okay? So it's a connection between two bones. And generally speaking, that's all a joint is. Now, most anatomy and physiology courses, particularly in the lecture half of the course, the joint chapter is often kind of glossed over, and there's really not a lot to it. Again, with what we call synovial joints, you can get into some complicated stuff with all the ligaments and all that. But generally speaking, for what most anatomy courses would require of students, it's fairly straightforward. And we're going to break it into three parts. Okay? The first two we're going to cover in this video. The third one we'll cover in the following video. And that is, we can classify joints based on structure, we can classify them based on function, and then also we can talk about synovial joints separately. These are very different than these other two. Okay? So the first way we can classify joints is based on structure. What does that mean? It basically is, what is the joint composed of? What is it made of? And so these terms right here, these big terms that I put up at the top, these are the structural classifications. So we have three types. We have fibrous, we have cartilaginous, and then synovial, which we'll heavily cover in the next video. So what do each of these mean? Well, if we have a fibrous joint, that just means that, generally speaking, the joint is made of fibrous connective tissue. And most of the time we're going to see it's usually dense regular connective tissue or dense irregular connective tissue, but the point is it's made of fibrous tissue. If we're talking about cartilaginous joints, you could probably guess that means we're talking about a joint that's composed of cartilage. Okay? And then synovial joints have a very complex structure. They have a lot of things here. They have articular cartilage, synovial fluid. We'll talk about that and other things in a lot more detail in the next video. But the structural terms up here at the top just refer to what the joint is made of. Now, for functional classifications, there's also three. The first one we have is what's called synarthroses. So remember, arthroses means joint. Syn is a prefix that means the same, meaning that this joint doesn't change, it doesn't move. It's the same all the time. So if you see the term synarthroses, that's one functional classification. That means we have an immovable joint or an immobile joint. It doesn't move. Okay? It's meant to stay static. Remember, when we think of joints, we think of our body moving. You go to the gym, you do bicep curls, tricep extensions, that's movement of the elbow joint. But remember, all a joint is a connection between two things. Those two things don't have to move. So a synarthrosis is an immovable joint. That's the first functional classification. The second one is called an amphiarthrosis. This is a slightly movable joint. Now these you're not going to see a tremendous amount of movement. You might see a movement of only 1 degree. Very small amount, but the point is they're not immovable. There's going to be a slight amount of movement seen in an amphiarthrosis. Okay, and just so you know, amphi tends to mean a little bit or a mix, somewhere in between. So basically there's only a slight amount of movement of those joints. Okay, and when we look at fibrous and cartilaginous joints, those are two structural classifications, we're only going to see synarthroses and amphiarthroses. Okay. Now, the last functional definition of a joint is a diarthrosis. Diarthrosis means freely movable. Okay? These are what we typically think of before we take anatomy of joints. And really, all synovial joints are diarthroses. So these two terms, the structural synovial and the functional diarthrosis, always associate these together. Okay? We're never going to see a diarthrosis that's cartilaginous. We're never going to see a diarthrosis that's fibrous. Likewise, we are never going to see a synovial joint that's a synarthrosis or an amphiarthrosis. So synovial is always diarthrosis, and diarthrosis means freely movable. And we'll cover these more in the next video. In this video, we're going to talk about fibrous and cartilaginous. So hopefully at this point, you understand how we structurally classify these and functionally classify these. The first thing we're going to talk about are what are called fibrous joints. Now, as we talked about before, fibrous joints are composed of fibrous connective tissue, and that connective tissue tends to be either dense regular connective tissue, dense irregular connective tissue, or some kind of modified connective tissue. But the point is, it's fibrous. There's no synovial joint, there is no cartilage. And we typically talk about three of them. The first one, which I've labeled 1 right here, is what's called a gomphosis. All gomphosis is it's basically a peg in a socket. Okay, so the best example of a gomphosis, and really as far as I know the only example in humans, is the teeth. So obviously your teeth, you don't want moving around, right? The only time your tooth is really going to move around is if you get punched right in the mouth, someone knocks your tooth out. But other than that, you're just eating normally, just sitting there, whatever, your teeth don't move. They're designed to stay static, okay? So the gomphosis refers to the tooth in the socket, but specifically the gomphosis is really just the joint. It's the joint that's connecting the tooth actually to what's called the periodontal ligament. Okay, so this orange part right here, this is the gomphosis. Okay, so it's a synarthrosis, it's immovable, and designed to keep the tooth embedded in the socket like a peg. Okay, so that's our first fibrous joint. Our second one over here, this is the sutures. Okay? Sutures you've probably seen before if you've taken the bone lab in anatomy. And these are just fibrous joints that connect the various bones of the cranium. Remember that as an infant, your cranial bones are not fused. And that's to allow the brain to grow and also to allow childbirth. Because as the baby's head is being pushed through the birth canal, the vagina, it has to be able to compress a little bit. Okay? So that means these bones can't be fused as an infant. It's only until later in life, and by that I mean roughly 3 years old, 2 or 3, that these bones start to fuse. And the way they fuse is by forming sutures, which you can see here is composed of dense fibrous connective tissue. Okay? Again, it's not specifically dense regular or dense irregular, it's a modified form of this, but the point is it's fibrous tissue and it joins these bones together. Again, you're fusing 2 bones together, so it's a joint. Okay, but when we're talking about gomphoses and sutures, these are synarthroses, meaning they are immovable. Okay, they do not move, and given their function, that you don't want them to move. Now, the third type of fibrous joint is a different functional classification. Okay, this one is called a syndesmosis, and these are amphiarthrosis, meaning they are slightly movable, so they do permit movement. Okay, so a syndesmosis is composed of dense regular connective tissue, and we see them in 2 locations. They are on both parts of your distal limbs. Okay, in other words, on your arm, your distal limb has your forearm, that's your ulna and radius, and this would also be the same thing in your distal leg between your tibia and your fibula. Okay, so I've mentioned both of those here. And what we see here is actually this membrane, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, a membrane that's actually between both of these bones. So we have what's called an interosseous membrane, which is basically a bundle of dense regular connective tissue that joins the ulna and the radius. And we would also see an interosseous membrane between the tibia and the fibula. Now, when we're looking at movement of the forearm, if we repeatedly pronate and supinate our forearm back and forth, okay, that appears to be a lot of movement. Okay, that is not the interosseous membrane. That is not this joint, the syndesmosis. When you pronate and supinate your forearm back and forth, what you're actually doing is you're dealing with something called the radial ulnar joint. Okay, that's a synovial joint, and that's not what we're talking about here. But I will mention this, that when you do pronate and supinate your arm, respectively, what you're actually going to see is that these bones, the ulna and the radius, are actually going to, in some positions, be a little bit further apart and then a little bit closer together. Okay? And so the reason that they're able to have this movement either a little bit closer together in some points or a little bit further apart is because you have this syndesmosis here. So this interosseous membrane is a syndesmosis. Okay? It permits slight movement because whenever you pronate or supinate your arm, these two bones move a little bit further apart and a little bit closer together. Okay? In certain locations along the length of the forearm. And the only reason you're allowed to have that movement is because of the syndesmosis. So it only permits a slight amount of movement. Okay? It is not the pronation or supination itself. It is simply the movement of these bones relative to each other, and it's only a slight amount of movement. And given that, it's an ambiarthrosis, meaning slight mobility. Okay? But it's fibrous because it's made of dense regular connective tissue. So when you're learning the fibrous joints, you do need to know these three, know what they are and what they are for, but also be able to differentiate them based on function. We have two synarthroses, the Gombo Psious and the Sutures, and then one ambiarthrosis, which is the Syndesmosis, and they're the interosseous membranes in the forearm and the distal leg. All right, now we're going to talk about cartilaginous joints. Again, cartilaginous is a structural classification of these joints. There are two major cartilaginous joints we're going to look at, and they both have different functional classifications. The two cartilaginous joints are what we call synchondroses and then symphyses. Okay? So what is a synchondrosis? A synchondrosis is a cartilaginous joint where the cartilage is hyaline cartilage. Okay? So when you see this prefix C-H-O-N-D-R, chondr, however you want to say that, that means hyaline cartilage. Okay? Always associate this with hyaline cartilage. So I'm actually going to underline that for you. There we go. So if you see synchondroses, it's a cartilaginous joint made of hyaline cartilage, and we have two examples here. One of them, which is the one that's shown over here, is the epiphyseal plate. Remember that the epiphyseal plate in long bones is what allows growth prior to puberty and a little bit during puberty, before these growth plates seal. And remember that they are composed of hyaline cartilage. Okay? Now ask yourself this question. Do you want this joint to be movable? Absolutely not. You do not want this joint to be movable. You don't want your bones to break. You don't want the epiphysis moving around on top of the metaphysis or diaphysis. So that would be very bad. So synchondroses, for that reason, are synarthroses, meaning they are immovable. Okay. Now another example of a synchondrosis that we'll see is the costal cartilages. This is the cartilage that you see where the sternum articulates with the ribs. Okay. That's a region of costal cartilage. It's also a synarthrosis. It is immovable. Okay. So actually it's kind of nice here with the cartilaginous joints. If you have a synchondrosis, they're all synarthroses. Okay. So all the synchondroses are actually immovable. But the key is that they're all made of hyaline cartilage. Okay. Now, the other type of cartilaginous joint is what's called a symphysis. These are a different functional class. These are ambiarthroses, meaning they're slightly movable. And we have two types of symphyses. The first one is the pubic symphysis, which we're actually going to look at in a minute, and then the intervertebral discs, which I'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. So the pubic symphysis is shown down here. Now, symphyses are composed of fibrocartilage by definition. So whereas synchondroses were hyaline cartilage, symphyses are fibrocartilage. And this is the pubic symphysis right here. It's a layer of fibrocartilage that actually fuses the two halves of the pelvis together, okay, right here. Now, this might not look like it's very movable, and it's not really super movable, that's why it's an ambiarthrosis, but it does allow the pelvis to rotate and move a little bit. In fact, this angle right here needs to be pretty high if you are giving birth. So this angle right here is actually larger in women. This is actually what's called the pubic ankle. Okay? And it turns out that when a woman's giving birth, this pubic symphysis allots a little bit of movement. And by a little bit, it's only a small amount, only about 1% rotation to actually widen this angle a little bit, which to some extent can help actually create some space for the baby to be moving through the birth canal. Okay, so this allows a very small amount of movement. Okay, but that's the pubic symphysis. It's made of fibrocartilage, and it's an amphiarthrosis, being slightly movable. Now, the other example of a symphysis is in the intervertebral discs. Okay, so this is also fibrocartilage as well. You talked about this in the bone section of lab. This is actually right here the intervertebral disc, and really you can only see it when you have two vertebrae stacked on top of one another. This disc right here doesn't really compress that much, but it does compress a little bit. So if you were to laterally flex your spine, so for example, stand up straight and kind of lean toward the left or the right side as if you're taking your arm and trying to reach down toward your knee. Okay, there's a little bit of movement that's permitted between each of the vertebrae in terms of that flexion or extension or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so that is your intervertebral disc. It's fibrocartilage, and it only permits a slight amount of movement. Okay, now here's the question everybody has when it comes to that. Well, what if I can really far lean down to either side, or I can bend forward? It appears that my spine is actually bending a lot more. Shouldn't that be a diarthrosis? Because I'm getting a lot more movement than what would be expected for an amphiarthrosis, and that's true. But there's actually two major joints in the spine, and this is what I wanted to clear up. One of those joints, which is only the slightly movable one, that is the joint between the bodies of the vertebra. Remember, the vertebral or the intervertebral disc actually sits beneath the bodies of the vertebra. That one only allows a slight amount of movement. So where is the movement actually occurring when you have lateral flexion, extension, flexion, all that stuff? Where is that occurring? That's actually occurring in what we call the facet joint. Okay, so the facet joint is also between the vertebrae, but it's a synovial joint. This is where you're seeing the greater degree of movement. Okay, I'm not going to go into what the synovial joints are here, but it suffices to say that in the spine, if you actually look at the superior articulating process of one vertebrae and the inferior articulating process of the vertebrae above it, that actually forms a facet joint. And there's a left one and a right one for each pair of vertebrae. And so that's actually the joint where you're getting that large degree of motion when you do either a flexion, an extension, or let's say a lateral flexion, okay, of the spine. So that one, that facet joint between the articular processes of the vertebra, that's a synovial joint. But that one is a diarthrosis, which is why we see so much movement when we do those motions, okay? But just understand that the intervertebral disc, this one is an amphiarthrosis, okay? So hopefully this video made a little bit of sense to you, and now you understand the differences between the structural classifications of joints, but also see that there are different functional classifications within each of the structurals. And really your job in a typical anatomy course is to kind of understand all 5 of these joints here: Gombo Psious, Sutures, Syndesmosis, Synchondrosis, and Symphyses, and not only understand which structural class they belong to, but also know the functional class they belong to, what type of movements allowed, and then some will actually also have you know the particular type of tissue that makes them up, but hopefully you can reason through it and make sense of it. If it's cartilaginous, it has to be cartilage. Condor means hyaline, then the other ones would have to be fibrocartilage. And then for fibrous, it has to be a fibrous tissue. So let's say dense regular connective tissue. In the next video, we're going to discuss some more details of synovial joints, and we're going to see that they tend to be a little bit more complicated than these two, and they're going to involve all sorts of things like articular cartilage, synovial fluid, and even ligaments. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. Thank you very much.